So what happens to, for example, somebody, let's say, like me, working for Topcoder? What drives me is the passion. One of the things that really attracted me to Topcoder was the competitive aspect of it. Not only because I'm competitive myself, a lot of us are, but because I know that there are people much better than me and I can learn from them. And that is really one of those things that has seriously given me a way to become, when I was somewhere here, to become much higher up there. So I would say that Topcoder being able to harness that passion is actually an amazing thing, and keep a lot of those passionate people in the loop is really quite an accomplishment. See, what was one of the biggest problems with Y2K? One of the biggest problems with Y2K was that nobody knew about anything because there were just a couple of guys sitting in a den with maybe one monitor, a green screen or something like that. And what they were doing is basically they were writing code that nobody knew anything about. There was no comments, there was nothing. They just knew things in their head. And I'm not saying they didn't know what they were doing in terms of what they wanted to achieve, but they didn't know what the people working for them were doing because there was no real documentation, there was no real comments. I've worked on a project that had to do with something like that, and you look at some, and it's anecdotal, but it's kind of like, this works, 3 exclamation marks. That was the comment. Or like, this is a roundabout way, but it works, or something like that. So for me to go through the code, and especially a lot of the code has been written in such a way to really get as much space, like memory, in terms of, you put like 5 characters into actually 1 character, and stuff like that. They were coming up with really amazing solutions, but never documented them. So it was impossible to figure this out. And in Topcoder, one of the most important things is the transparency of the process. But it's not just the transparency, the process itself is used to drive itself. So the idea is you have a positive feedback loop that what it does is it improves itself by using the very community that improves itself using the process. I know it sounds a little strange, I'll try to break it down, but the truth here is that we self-propagate through the passion, so to speak, and through the process. I'll give you an example. And this was going back to the kind of maintenance aspect of how is it that Topcoder deals with that, given that I'm not an employee. I'm just somebody who loves to compete. I'm obviously under a lot of different, I have to sign things, so I don't give information away, of course. But what is it that, for example, makes sure that a project goes forward even if something happens? Well, the way it's structured is like this. You have a number of people competing in a particular competition. Let's take out one small competition. And what happens is you have a first place winner who takes the bulk of the money. You have a second place winner who takes half of the money. You also have other people involved who competed but didn't necessarily win. You also have 3 reviewers who are going to obviously very intimately know what was going on in that project. Usually you'll have a co-pilot, a project manager. So you have a pool of people who keep their eye on the particular piece of code or piece of engineering information. So even if for some reason I, as the winner of the competition, can't take care of it, there's a second place person who knows the project very well because they competed with me on the same thing. They could do it. One of the reviewers, because the only way you become a reviewer in Topcoder is if you actually competed yourself and have won a number of things. The only way that I became a reviewer is because I came, let's say, 10 times in competitions above the score mark of 85. So the people who are reviewing, obviously they have to know what they're doing. So you have a lot of different people that you can draw out in a case of emergency.